Live from the FTX studios in Los Angeles. Welcome to Fine Time. Wait, what? You're at live from the Luna Studios in the Voyager Studios? The live from the Celsius Studios. They're all crashing! Hello, party people, it's your boy Dre. Welcome to Fine Time. You thought I was going to say Video Game Land, huh?
I was waiting for Video Game Land because that's where I want to be. Certainly not at work. Nope.
Kevin, have you ever been to Video Game Land? I like how, you know what? I like the tradition now. We're going to start every show talking about if we have been to or want to go to Video Game Land.
You always commit to going to Video Game Land, but then you're always hesitant about it the next episode. That's what we're really committing to.
Yeah, I always lose confidence somehow.
5 years from now, you're going to say, we're going to Video Game Land, and you're going to say, I'm not fucking around anymore. I'm saying it every time. We're going to Video Game Land every time. And then the 5 years and 2 weeks later, you're still going to say the same thing.
And if you two don't shut up, I'm turning this car around and we're going back to boring high school test land.
Oh my God. There's no Video Game Land there. Full disclosure. Last week, when we aired our Mega Man and Bass in Defense of episode, thank you if you listened to that, we recorded that in like June. So like even then I started that show talking about, I don't know why I always say Video Game Land. So I've been kvetching about this for like months, just so you know. This is not a fresh thing. Anyway, so, okay, our very first show, our very first big question on our first show was about Sonic Frontiers. And the big question was, guys, talk me out of this shit. I can't be doing this. How can I put myself through another Sonic game cycle and it's going to suck and I'm going to be pissed and we're all going to laugh at me.
And we obviously did a piss poor job of convincing you.
Yeah, you sure did. Because you know what? I pre-ordered it. Because I had to at that point, especially since one of our place your bets is that it's going to be in my top 50th percentile, if you will, of Sonic games. And I guess by the time I'm done talking about this, we'll see if it gets there, because I'm not sure myself. I made a list of Sonic games and I ranked them according to my opinion, and we'll see where I slot it in. Any predictions, though, Steve? What do you think I'm going to feel here?
It's going to just barely edge out in that top 50 percentile.
Just barely? Okay.
I've seen some weird videos.
Yeah, I think it's going to get way up there because I'm pretty sure you said something to the effect of, well, it doesn't suck. And I'm pretty sure that the bottom 50th percentile falls into it definitely sucks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, it is, as we well know, there are so many crappy Sonic games. So, at long last, Sonic Frontiers, and you guys basically treat this like an AMA. I don't want to prattle on too much about Sonic here, so any questions you have about the game or myself as a person and why I would play this, just ask away. So, I guess we could just start at the beginning, where I wish the setup for this was a bit more interesting than what it actually is. Like, I don't know, like maybe a meteor struck Sonic World and then like everything's ruined. And then like we're in this like cyber world post-apocalyptic thing. No, it's just Eggman. He just put a thing on a cyberspace terminal and everyone got sucked into cyberspace. That was it.
It's a little vanilla.
Yeah, it's a tad vanilla.
Man, not even it's 2021. Let's introduce a new stupid character.
No, there was no new characters in this. I guess there was, but it's like the one temporary character that's in every Sonic game now, because Sonic needs he can't just be like, Amy, I'm gay, get away from me, like he has to like actually like You know what I mean? They already pulled that trick too much. So just, yeah. But I guess this is kind of sad that I have to say this. And this is like, I wouldn't be saying this about anything else, but we have to say it about Sonic. This game is not a technical mess. Believe it or not. There is some very bizarre pop-in and shadow draw and like foliage draw. It has some of the worst modern pop-in I've seen in a video game, like in the last couple years.
No, Andre, I already know the answer to this question, but I need you to reiterate for everyone at home. You played the version available on the PlayStation 5 console, right?
Yes. You know, a console where LODs are not supposed to be a fucking thing anymore. But in this game they are, like, and they pop up right in front of your face. The PlayStation 5 has the horsepower to like not do this. They didn't do it here. I don't know if that means they were like playing to a lowest common denominator, because even like fully tricked out on PC, it does the exact same shit. There's just something the way this game is built that does this. Besides that, though, honestly, this game looks really good. I really enjoy the way this looks, and I haven't been able to say that about Sonic in a while. I think the closest and this is going to sound crazy, the closest I came to liking a Sonic game for its looks recently was Sonic Boom. Even though that game sucks, I actually really did like the redesigns and like the look of that game. I actually thought was really good. But that's neither here nor there. The game looks good. And I think what's really great about this game's gameplay loop is that it gives you that classic adventure game feeling. What's over there? Let's take a look at that. Let's solve this. You know what I mean? You could just kind of run around this landscape and find all sorts of stuff to do and all sorts of stuff to find. I think there's a lot of people who will look at the map and see it almost feels like a Far Cry map. Oh my God, here are all these doodads to collect and all this stuff. You don't need to pay attention to any of that shit. Just run around the map and you'll find everything that you need to find. Because like you need to find a certain amount of whatever to talk to Amy or Tails or whatever, depending on what section you're in. And like they're on the map, but like again, if you just roam around, you'll find them. You know, so I think that's cool. It's intuitive where you don't have to be like map hunting and setting a like waypoint every second. Like, oh, I better go to this exact spot to find this.
Is there enough variety just around the world to keep that engaging the whole time?
I thought so. I definitely thought so. And I like how video gamey it is. Usually this is something I don't like, where something looks too like, here are all these platforms and space and a very realistic environment. Like that's kind of the thing that bothers me about the art direction of like a Banjo-Kazooie or something like that. It just feels very artificial in a way. But for this game, it actually works because, like I said, it's cyberspace. It's weird. It's like this weird mixed up kind of thing, something from like Sonic's memories. Oh, there's grind rails and springs, right? But more to your question, yeah, I think it does keep it engaging because you're zipping around so fucking fast because you're Sonic, of course. And I think, I would never go as far as to call this an open world game. I think that's a little silly and misleading. But your fast traversal as Sonic almost feels like you're, again, this sounds silly, speed running a open world game because you can get anywhere you want. Zip, zip, zoom here. You know what I mean? Think about like if something's on the other side of the map in a Skyrim or something. It's like, oh man, I gotta fuck Jesus Christ. Sonic, you can just. It doesn't matter. You can just blaze right over there. I think that's the most fun part about the game, Kevin. And I think if you play this, that's the thing you will appreciate the most is that like traversal is so fun because you're fucking Sonic. You're not like a knight or something who can't go over mountains or he has to, you know what I mean? Like it's fun.
That is a big selling point, just to be able to say when you're not doing something that you've been told to do and just moving around and the feeling in the game is engaging in itself that's great to hear.
Yeah, it's just really cool. And like I said, it has that classic adventure feel. You see something in the distance or whatever, and it's like, oh, I want to go over there. Or I want to see what that is or whatever. You have those moments in this game and they're fun.
Are any of those moments looking for that third damn Chaos Emerald?
Excuse me, sir. It is the fourth damn Chaos Emerald. Actually, it's a damn fourth Chaos Emerald. Okay? Get it right, Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow is not in this game, by the way. It's weird. Sorry, spoiler alert. He's just not here. I guess he doesn't have to be in everything. But even though he dies in Sonic Adventure 2, but we forgot all about that because he was popular. But anyway, I like the clean and simple and clean, haha, presentation. It doesn't inundate you with like a whole bunch of like AAA markers and like do this and do that and like all this stuff and people chattering in your ear every second about this and that. It feels very solitary. It feels a bit lonely. And that gives it, I mean, yeah, you're trying to save your friends, but you talk to them when you want to talk to them. Otherwise, nobody's talking to you. And I like that. It's almost like, not that it's Metroid, but that's why we like those kind of games, right? It feels very solitary. And this game does too. You're in this big open world. It's like, what the hell's going on? It feels empty. It feels artificial, but it's not. I don't know. I know this game has like a very polarizing viewpoint right now. People either love it or hate it. I am not going to say which side I'm on yet. Steve, do you have something to say?
No, it just sounds like this is the Sonic CD game you always wanted to play. You're Sonic in a big world and you're alone.
I mean, but Sonic CD sucks, so I can't. See, that's the thing about my list. That's why you don't know. I don't even like Sonic CD or like some other games that people like, right? So like you never know how this is going to end up, right? Or I could be sagging down that bottom part, that bottom 50th percentile because I'm a hater. I like the collectibles aspect of this game too, because this is something I always bitch about in like whether it's like Donkey Kong Country. Again, I'm just shitting on Rare here, but it's like it feels like a lot of games just have collectibles because you're supposed to have them. Oh, they're here, so you're supposed to care about them. All the things you collect in Sonic, almost said Sonic Adventure, Sonic Frontiers, has a purpose and gives you purpose. And they all do something. They're not just there because they told you to, which is very refreshing. One thing that is really cool too, and it's about the map not unlocking the way you think it is. So like think about something like Ass Creed or like Horizon, where you get to like the tall point and then you like see the radius around. This game has map points, but they're very digital. They just build in squares on the map where it's like, okay, so you're not just building out a radius around where you just are. You're filling in the map with various squares.
Just from entering those squares?
No, you do a little task, right? So you see like a point where it's like, oh, I can cover more of the map. So you do a little thing, a little push puzzle, a little 3-step, like 1, 2, 3, do the switches or something. You're always doing like a little thing. There's so many of them. This is where I found the game most fun. Parry this thing 3 times or whatever it is, or here's a point over here. Get there in 45 seconds or whatever. There's all sorts of them, Steve.
Find the 3 pieces of the Master Emerald.
Yeah, basically. And
it's just like maybe this is a real strong stretch. I'm like mentally drawing some comparisons with Mario Odyssey here, as far as, you know, go and jump the rope 30 times or whatever. Is that like kind of leaning in that direction?
You're not far off. No, there's some of the tasks did actually remind me of Mario Odyssey. Now, nothing as cool as like play with the jazz band while you spell your name, you know, Mario in the right order, right? It's there's nothing as cool as that, but like, no, you're not totally wrong. And then you do that, and then some more map unlocks, and it's like, oh, I can go here to get another map point. I can go here. So it's very strategically showing you some other stuff on the map and not just doing a radius, which is, I think, honestly, maybe the best part of the game. It kept me going. It's like, I want to see more stuff. You know, by the way, about that parry attack, I feel like something happened in development where they just said, fuck it, because parry implies that you're doing like a timing attack to like parry someone's attack. There's no timing at all. You just hold L1 and R1, and whenever they attack you, you parry it. It's like so fucking easy. So it's just like, I think something happened where they thought like some boss battles were too hard or something. It's like, nah, just let them do this. Even when they show you the parry attack in the training section, the very first thing they say is that the timing is inconsequential or whatever. Just hold the 2 buttons. They literally say that. It's just like, okay, you can just do this. I just found that really funny.
Is that kind of game breaking to a degree?
Not really, because actually, see, that's a perfect seg into just talking about combat in general. I don't think so, because the combat in this game is really fun. You may or may not have seen it where Sonic is doing punch and kick combos and like doing spin dashes at the enemy too, and like sorts of like, I don't know, spinning bird kick or whatever the hell you want to call it, like to some robots and stuff. And I think the combat is really good. And even when you're in the open world and you counter like a big enemy, it becomes like a mini boss battle within itself. There's a lot of fun stuff out there just to explore. It's like, and not all of it's perfect. There's some stuff that's a little too prickly. It's like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have died at that. And that's the reason why, and this might be the most controversial thing I say, we need to move past Sonic having rings as his life, because we still do that. Pick up, as long as you have one ring, you'll survive. But like if you're up on a platform or grind railing or something, you can't pick up your rings, so it doesn't make any sense. You can die on like really bitchy stuff just because you got hit a couple times. You don't lose all your rings. Like if you have like 500 rings, you're not going to lose all of them when you get hit. You know what I mean? But although I would love to see like a PS5 or something try to pull that off, literally show like 500 3D like spinning rings. That was always like the most annoying thing about Sonic Adventure. It didn't matter how many rings you had. It's just like when you get hit, like 20 little shitty little rings just spin around you in a circle. It's just like, come on, man. Anyway, my point is Sonic should have a life bar. In a game like this, where it's like fairly open world-ish, and you can do this, that, and the other, you're traversing here and there, I feel like a life bar is in order. I know that sounds a little sacrilege, but honestly,
I feel like Sonic Boom had some sort of life bar, or you jumped, or you just dropped a certain amount of rings when you got hit. But I also only watched people online play Sonic Boom. I didn't play Sonic Boom.
That was going to be my next question.
And I wasn't going to, try ever, even after the giant patch that only fixed 2 or 3 things. So I'm not going to be go ahead and correct me online on that one, everybody. All 3 of you that played Sonic Boom on purpose.
Oh, there's a lot more than that. Don't underestimate the desperation of Wii U owners having their own exclusive Sonic game.
I mean, there were 2 of them, and that wasn't that wasn't even the very good, the okayest one. Anyway.
Now, before we move on too far away from combat, I just want to go back to this parrying thing. And I fully buy when you talk about the combat, it's fun. But when you talk about, sometimes I feel like I died and I shouldn't have. If it does get to a frustrating point, can you essentially just cheese your way through everything if you basically have this, like indefinite indemnity?
Not necessarily. The enemies play a little smarter than that. The parry really comes in a lot more with like boss battles and stuff, because it's like, oh, they're gonna do their big attack, because like for every boss battle you turn into Supersonic, you know what I mean? So like it's really, Supersonic goes, it's like the amount of rings you have, it just counts down until you until you lose. So it's like a time battle thing. So it's really just like the parry is about like not getting knocked away from the boss too far, so you can like don't have to jet all the way back through Supersonic. You use it in quote unquote regular battles too, but no, you can't like cheese everything with that, because you can't parry everything. It's not as busted as it seems. I just thought it was funny that they removed it's surely at some point in development they removed the actual timing of it. Okay. Notice I haven't said anything about like the quote unquote actual Sonic levels. I'm sure you guys have seen this. If you've seen any footage of Sonic Frontiers, is that you go into like what looks like traditional Sonic levels. This is the worst aspect of the game, because this has been the worst aspect of Sonic for a long time now, is the actual Sonic part. Like, and they're still not that great here. They last like 2 minutes. They're totally practically on rails the whole time, so you just kind of run for it. Sonic has become a parody of itself in that regard. You just run, you just hold forward and you win. That's kind of what these all feel like. The problem is there's like 4 little tasks you have to do. Clear the stage in this amount of time, or get the 5, red coins, or not red coins, but whatever. And like do this and that gives you keys in the world to unlock other stuff. So you kind of have to do some of these tasks. unfortunately. You don't have to do too many of them. You don't have to like perfect every stage. And like I said, they're only like a couple minutes long, so it's not like you have to spend too much time doing it. This is like such a small part of the game, so it's not a big deal. I just don't think they're very good. They're no better than they are in like Sonic Forces or Sonic Unleashed or any other game of recent memory. They're just there. They're not even better than Sonic Generations. I know that's like a game people like. I don't like Sonic Generations, and for that reason. So, and then like the 2D sections, they feel better than Forces, which is like some of the worst physics I've ever felt, but it still doesn't feel right. They gave Sonic a double jump, which just feels like a big cop out. I don't know how much you guys have ever played, more so the original Sonic Adventure, but Sonic has that big slow jump. You know, it's like very looping and it felt good. I really enjoyed that because it made sense for that 3D environment. I wish they would bring something like that back, because that felt, maybe it wasn't very Sonic, but it felt a lot better in my opinion. I think that's about all I fucking got outside of like, I don't know how much I want to spoil here. This is kind of like, fuck it. I don't care. This is a very minor spoiler. If you don't want to hear this, skip ahead like 2 minutes. Big the Cat is in this game. He's here for like a fishing mini game, which is like,
yeah, I saw.
Yeah, which is like,
this was brought to my attention.
Yeah, Steve, I know you like the fishing games, but like, I don't know how much you ever played a Sonic Adventure DX. I don't know if you had a Dreamcast. I'm just assuming.
I played it on GameCube.
Yeah, exactly. So like, look, you know how big the cat's fishing is, right? It's like dead simple. It's not very like complicated. It's the same thing in this. You just cast a line, a fish will always bite, and then you just press the button at the right time. It's like not even as engaging as like Animal Crossing. It's like very brain dead. But you can use this to like cheese a bunch of like keys and like other power-ups and like your attack and defense. By the way, Sonic has like levels. His attack and defense can go up to like level 99. Oh my god. Wow. And that's weird.
I'm okay with simple fishing mini games, but if it's this, you're telling me it's the same one from pretty much the same thing from Sonic Adventure 1. Really? You're going to bring Big the Cat in, and we're here for graphics on PS5, and you couldn't give us a real fishing game?
No, because these are not graphics on PS5. Also, when Sonic casts the fishing line, the screen space reflection on the water gets completely distorted. Like it just completely almost like goes away. The water is so fucked up in this game. It's weird. I don't know why there's like weird graphical glitches in this.
It's the cyberspace.
Yeah, it's cyber water, so you can't like.
Why am I not surprised at all that Steve already knew about the fishing thing? I'm sure that there's the Twitter account where you can, see can you pet the dog in this game, and I'm sure Steve follows like 5 different can you fish in the game accounts.
Yep.
There's only one can you fish account that I know of, and it hasn't posted in months.
Okay, excuse me.
Steve was emailing the developers 6 months ago saying we need to know, can you fish?
He is absolutely the admin of that account. Don't let him fool you.
Steve is not the admin of that account.
Bullshit.
Steve actually DM'd that account about a different game, but that he never posted about. So
you don't have to DM yourself when you're the admin of the account. I mean, you ain't got to lie to kick it. So I'm trying not to say too much here, but there's a point in the game where you felt this in video games, right? It feels like it's wrapping up, but then it keeps going.
Uh-huh.
And look, it's not a big deal in this game because it doesn't go that much longer, but I kind of wish it had wrapped up at that other point. Again, it doesn't ruin the game or anything. It's like, oh man, this is too long. Just hurry up or whatever. It didn't take that long. At the same time, I do wish it had kind of wrapped up just a few hours earlier, but I only spent like 20 hours on this game. So it's not like this game is super duper long or anything. So, I feel like it was worth it.
When you talk about it, you said it would be a stretch to call it open world, but do they gradually kind of narrow that down as you get to certain points in the story, and is it kind of turn into a fairly directed experience as they want to flesh out the story?
No. At all points, you were always open, pretty much. There's no points where you feel kind of like, okay, you're locked into doing this dungeon. Not a dungeon, but you know what I mean. Like you're not ever locked into like doing a thing.
You know what I got to ask you, Andrew? You said it was worth it. Do you mean it was worth it as a Sonic game? Or do you mean it was worth it?
Both. I feel like this is a really good Sonic game. I do. Like, and it's different. It's fucking bizarre. It's weird that they even tried something like this. But it has its problems, as I've stated. It is not perfect by any means. But to answer your question, Steve, yeah, both.
Is this a game Steve and Kevin should buy on sale, or should we just ignore it like Forces?
Kevin should play this. Steve, I don't know. I think you'll be... Its rough edges will feel a lot rougher to you. I don't think you'll be as kind to it. I feel like Kevin would enjoy Sonic Forces. I don't know. It's just a feeling I get. I mean, I could be
Kevin's
wrong.
got low standards.
Yes, exactly. Apparently, I do too.
Kevin drinks milk out of the jug and will enjoy Sonic Frontiers.
Oh, that's all true. No, everybody knows I'm not a classy man. You're a fairly devout Sonic follower. Do you think for the average video game fan, they're going to enjoy this just as a singular experience without looking at it in the context of being a fairly, for better or worse, diehard Sonic fan?
I feel like the answer is yes. I feel like the adventuring is fun enough to forgive either it's just wild graphical glitches or just like, even if you don't like the Sonic levels that much, they're so short and it's like not even 10% of the game. So even if you're just thinking like, oh man, I just don't like the way Sonic plays in 3D, this is something totally different. So I think the answer to that question is yes. So even though I just said that this is a good Sonic game, let's rank it. Let's see if I can win I even forgot what I bet in Place Your Bets for if it's going to be in the top 50th percentile of Sonic games. Okay. So I have them all listed here. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but Mania at the top, Forces at the bottom. Sonic 4 is like right above. I debated that whether Sonic 4 was worse than Forces. I think Forces is worse.
What's the break point?
So let's see. We have 28 games on this list. So it would have to be higher than Sonic 3D Blast to get onto this list. Now, again, I'm a little bit of a weirdo. Right below Sonic 3D Blast is Sonic 2006, because like that's the game people think is the worst. And to me, that's kind of smack dab in the middle. I don't think that game is like nearly as bad. Like Generations is below that. Sonic CD is below that. Sonic and the Secret Rings is below that. Like there's a lot of games. All 3 Sonic Advance games are below that. But I would slot Sonic Frontiers high. I would put it just below Sonic Heroes, which is Sonic Heroes is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th on this list or 10th. I know Steve, for the audience's sake, Steve is making a face at me because he fucking hates Sonic Heroes. So like I know exactly.
So does that most people with a pulse?
No, Sonic Heroes is good. I don't fucking care what anybody says. So I would probably put it just below that, which makes it just above Sonic Rush Adventure, the second Sonic Rush game. So yes, Sonic Frontiers does enter my top 50th percentile of Sonic games.
I would have been fairly confident just from hearing about you talk about it before that it would have definitely landed in top 25.
Yeah, see, almost there. It's just the actual, if the actual Sonicing part of it, the levels were actually good, then like fine. But it's such a small part of the game that it doesn't matter.
This Sonic doesn't even Sonic.
Nope. So yeah, sorry for talking so long about Sonic. I almost said Sonic Heroes, Sonic Frontiers, but I figured we couldn't shortchange that game since we had, built it up for so long. So there we go. I got all my Sonic ventures. Thank you for the AMA, everybody. Have you guys been playing anything that isn't Sonic Frontiers?
Well, as a matter of fact, I know me and Kevin played God of War Ragnarok, or we started God of War Ragnarok. real life's a bitch. So we didn't finish God of War Ragnarok.
How far are you, Steve?
Why, I guess I just finished up the second boss.
Rough guess for hour wise, do you think?
About an hour and a half.
Okay, so I'm sitting right about 14 hours, so I've definitely got a little bit more than you on there. So I'll try and I think overall both of us want to keep this relatively early impressions, and then at a later date we'll do a kind of a spoiler hour at the end of one of the shows and dig in a little deeper.
You know what stinks when you don't do this show as a living? You don't have time to play all the video games you buy right away.
What Steve is trying to say is donate heavily to the Venmo linked in our Twitter profile, and then we can just do this for a living.
Anyway.
The more money we get, the more I'm going to start ignoring my wife and kids and really getting down to business.
The more money we get, the more I'll talk about Sonic games for half an hour at a time.
I'd probably just smoke cheese in the backyard all day anyway.
Hot.
Anyway.
So how did you find the first hour and a half?
I liked it a lot, but it's definitely a sequel to God of War 2018. Now, this is the God of War 2018 and not any other year, definitely, is definitely the first God of War I finished. And I would definitely say it's a great breaking in point for anyone that wants to play God of War, because God knows I'm not touching the PS2 ones ever again, based on my hour-ish, like at other people's houses or whatever, trying to be like, okay, I'm done mashing the buttons now. There was a lot more going on, but this is very much a sequel, and I appreciate that in the story. Like we kind of start in the thick of it already. Like I thought starting with the mushing, having the mush away from Freya was an interesting choice, but it worked.
Now, don't let that dissuade you, because I felt very much the same for the first couple hours. But it's almost annoyingly just more God of War 2018. But the more you get into it, I do feel like it sets itself apart. Maybe not technically. That's one thing I want to touch on. I feel very much like they withheld this game to be able to put it on PS4. Even looking at Horizon Forbidden West, obviously they were kind of in the same boat there, but that game I still felt like was somewhat of a technical showpiece on PS5. This one less so. Now, admittedly, the level design feels a lot more handcrafted, I think, here. But you talked about that Freya chase early on. That was where I first really noticed it, because a lot of the rocks that are flying around the dog sled, like, it almost looks like it's got this like PS4 blockiness. And I've noticed that a few times. Have you picked up on that too?
Well, I'm still playing with HD TV from however long ago, so everything's going to look like how it's going to look. I don't have graphics on PS5, as it were. I get to play at 60 FPS like everyone else, and I'm not really. I still
feel like just some of those assets, even I don't know. It's a little bit hard to describe. Even things like the loading times are still there. Like they still have where they've like artificially inflated the loading times in some cases on PS5. On one hand you have where you've got to like duck under the rock or slide through the crack or whatever, which everybody knows is the oldest trick in the book at this point. But there's also where you like fast travel on the Tree of Idris. And in God of War 2018, as soon as that was done loading, that door would pop up and you could go into it, and it's kind of doing the same thing here. But usually there's dialogue in those sections, and they force you to sit through all that dialogue until the door pops up. And I know goddamn well that's loading a lot faster than that on PS5, which that's a little annoying.
It's like Andre keeps telling us, we're not quite done with the PS4 generation yet. Mm-hmm. We got a handful of holdouts yet, and we just gotta... This
is the worst example I've seen of that. I think as far as feeling like the PS4 really held back this experience. Unfortunately,
I know they danced around it for Spider-Man. And I forgot how, because I didn't play. I remember you guys talking about it however long ago, but with the fast travel for there, but they still snuck the tips in. But I do appreciate.
Now, I don't want to.
I'm just
Sorry,
going to
go
say,
ahead.
I do appreciate not having to wait after dying. I only died twice, and it just snapped me back into the game.
Yeah,
as opposed to 2018, which I played on the PS4, and it was just another situation where, well, I guess I could check or text or two while I'm waiting for Kratos to get back up.
Kevin knows, but like, I still think Destiny is like the craziest load times on PS4. You just sit in space forever. You choose a planet and it's like, you feel like you're literally flying there. It takes so long. You can get up, take a piss, get yourself a drink, like, and just like, it's something.
I don't know. I feel like I was, we talk about long loading times playing Skyrim on PS3, especially when you had a like 140 hour save that was like gradually getting more and more corrupted. That was rough. I'll tell you what. Anyways, I don't want to paint this out like I'm not enjoying this because I'm starting out with the bad, but I'm very doe-eyed for this game. I've always talked about how much I love God of War 2018, but I almost kind of like forgot why. And after I spent an hour with Ragnarok, 100%, I was back. Just loving the time spending with it. For one, I want to talk about the pacing because I feel like pacing is always something that I would notice when it's bad. But it's really hard to notice good pacing, and I think the pacing is so good here that it actually is noticeable. Combat sections, I'm never feeling like I'm getting sick and tired of the combat sections. I never feel like I'm getting overwhelmed with tricky puzzles. The story beats and the cutscenes aren't coming too often or too long, and they're not too spread out. They've got the kind of the main campaign sections that are part of the main story, and it feels meaty and substantial, but it doesn't drag on for too long. And then they also have the times where, you're sitting in the boat, or it's just kind of like, lore building dialogue or whatever. It's always inserted at the right time. And again, it just never drags on. So pacing is exceptionally good here. And I think there was a lot of thought that went into that.
Yeah, I gotta say I am appreciating the story pacing so far too, but it's definitely not something for Andre to just jump into. I think he still needs to go ahead and play 2018 instead of being like, I hate AAA games. Sony sold out ever since they made the Walkman available to Americans.
Wow. Yes, that article I wrote when I was like 6. Yeah, for June 88 issue of Time. Yes, the Walkman just ruined everything with Sony.
But no, it's Andre was talking about combat kind of being phoned in, but you can't phone in God of War, especially if you're following up on God of War 2018. There's the stuff you can block, but there's also the stuff you can't block, and there's also stuff you can't dodge. And I am enjoying that even on normal. I'm too much of a wuss to play. Give me God of War, unlike Kevin. So
no, I'm playing on normal too. And you know what? Normal is not a walk in the park as far as combat goes.
Yeah, I guess I'm getting old, or everyone else just thinks it's too easy. I don't know. But I'm having a ball. I just wish I had more time. I also appreciate them giving the Chaos Blades fairly early on instead of when the game's almost over like they did last time. They let you flip back and forth for all the antics there too.
Yeah, there's a lot of variety there. I wanted to talk about combat in specific because I made up my mind when I'm playing this, and this is a big statement. I think that God of War 2018 and Ragnarok have my all-time favorite combat in a video game. It's extremely smart, and there's a lot of it's very varied, and there's a lot of depth to it. And you need to give it your attention, but it's also not like, Dark Souls combat where everything needs to be meticulously planned out. There are times when I'm in a fight and I'll die, and before I start again, if you actually take there's an opportunity to step back and think about what you could be doing better and going into it with that intention and actually being able to do better. And that's why I think the combat is very smartly designed.
I won't make such a grand statement to say it's the best combat system ever, but one thing I did like from the first game was how we watched Atreus go from I'm going to throw twigs at you, yeah, to, kicking about as much ass as Kratos did with his bow. And I was wondering how that was going to factor into the second game, because he's pretty much almost OP by the time the game's over with his different arrows and what have you. And the answer is just do what they did in Mega Man X2 and take away most of what he does, but still make him be able to kill things on his own. And that works. They make Atreus capable while still making Kratos do most of the work. I like it a lot.
I do think they've also and maybe I'm it's hard to look back the 4 years since I played the original and really accurately remember it, but I think they've upped the complexity and especially just like the enemy variety here. There's definitely a lot greater variety, so they can allow Atreus to do more and still not have the experience suffer because of it.
Oh yeah, we've already had there's the Raiders and then a handful of other monsters and Odin. Well, that was more cinematic than anything. Although I did think it was funny how it sent me to a game over screen and then pulled me out of it. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
I see when it's over. Okay. I see what you're doing there. But
I think that's kind of all I've got for Ragnarok for now until when we get into the nitty gritty.
Remember in Steve and the girl who stands behind, they make you choose quit before you can go on with the story because you can't do anything. Yeah. So you have to choose quit. And it's like, give up. It's like, fuck you. Just let me. It's like, I get what they were trying to do, but it's just like, come on, man.
Yeah. When you play something else?
You know what? Just as a follow-up, I talked about Vice City last episode, and I said I was into it enough that I wanted to follow up with San Andreas. So as soon as I finished Vice City, immediately I booted up San Andreas, and I'm happy to report that as much as I talked about how much better Vice City was at the time of playing it as opposed to San Andreas was at launch, San Andreas is also in that state. There's still the odd time where you're driving and you see a section of grass that's like sitting at a 45-degree angle from the topography and stuff like that, but it's definitely much better off. And I would say that this is a great way to play San Andreas. I also just want to comment on how insanely well that game holds up, and I think it says a lot to be. I think for Grand Theft Auto, especially the 3D Grand Theft Autos, the star of those games is always the world that you're playing in, and in that sense, San Andreas, I honestly think has more in common with Grand Theft Auto 5 than it does Vice City. And I think it's just crazy to think that in that generation, there was GTA 3, Vice City, and then San Andreas. And between the second and third entries in that generation, they were still able to make that much of a leap between games. And it's even, playing it 20 years later, that's almost more impressive looking at it in retrospect and how far we've come since then.
Mm-hmm. You're right, because you look at PS2 games from 2000 or when it launched, right? And then look at PS2 games in 2006. We went from stuff like, Eternal Ring or whatever to Yakuza, right? It took a while to get there, but you could you're right. And even in those short years, you can still see the progression.
Yeah, I do miss that back in the days when you could really see them squeezing all of the pulp out of a console generation by the end. We still get that to some degree, but I certainly don't think we do to that extent anymore.
No.
Probably since that generation.
Not as much, no, but it still does happen.
That's kind of it for me. What about you, Steve?
So yeah, time has been cruel. So even though I really wanted a lot more to talk about, I started Harvestella. Harvestella, the game that kind of looks like Rune Factory, but is made by Square Enix instead. Yeah, that Harvestella. And, there's a story here, and they want you to know if you're an amnesiac who wakes up outside of town, and they just hand you the farm across the street. Okay, great. But then there's a meteor that falls, and there's monsters and time-traveling robot it's from the future, maybe. And can we please just let me plant these onions and let some of this happen organically? But once the exposition brigade like goes away or eases up, us farm adventure RPG people, we know what we got to do. We wake up, we tend the crops, we go fishing, we tend to the story plots, we go fishing, we improve our stuff, we go fishing, we make sure the saleables end up in the box set by the end of the day, and repeat. It is satisfying if you like this kind of game. It is excruciating if you don't. I didn't log too much time in God of War. I might have gotten like a bit more here. I don't even have my stables for livestock or even my kitchen yet. But this is like the perfect bedtime game where I'm like, got an hour before I like conk out for good while I'm winding down with all these bullshit holiday shifts. So if you saw this online and you thought this might be a game for me, it probably is. And if you're not too sure about it, they did include one of those fancy start playing the game for a few hours and then carry over your progress if you like it demos.
Oh, man, why did you say that? Now I have to piss myself off with Harvestella.
You blame the time crunch on not having the cows in the kitchen, but I have a feeling that there's probably like a solid 4 to 5 hours of Steve like repetitively fishing and then running over to the closest place where you can like find a wild onion to replenish a little bit of stamina and then going back and fishing more.
Okay, we have.
I think this is a you problem.
We have come a long way from the Super Nintendo Harvest Moon, wherein one, we have a backpack for me to stuff fish in and carry stamina items in, so there would not be that much running around. And two, the amount of money they want and materials they want is big because they want you to do the story pieces, which would be slightly more profitable when you sell some of those pieces back to the townsfolk in the box.
Well, with all the meteors and wild shit you just described, I was wondering why a farming sim game was rated teen, but I guess you just told me why.
I'm having fun. I mean, it's certainly going to be my bedtime Switch game until Friday when Pokemon MILF comes out.
What's the other one? If this is Pokemon MILF,
Pokemon DILF.
Pokemon MILF and Pokemon DILF.
Duh.
Okay, sorry.
and then the slightly expanded versions are GILF. I guess just GILF. You can't do male GILF and female GILF separately.
No,
GILFs,
you get to choose.
Pokemon
You get to
GILFs.
choose when you make your character. That's who you get to fuck. Yeah.
That's the one where the GILF actually follows you around on screen and you get to see the sprite.
Yes, exactly. Just like you can. Oh my God. I was going to say, just like how you can ride your Pokemon in Let's Go, but we're going to start talking about writing other stuff, and that's not what we really want to do.
Lock it up.
Yeah, let's lock that up. Let's take a break. We need to cool off. I mean, you know how we cool off on Fine Time. Be right back. All right, we're back. You know what we did. You know what we're about. You know who we did. Steve, an indie world tried to do us a couple days ago, but I don't think it was that interesting. There was a few interesting things, though, I thought. Maybe?
I liked a bunch of these, but really, by the time we get to it, I mean, come on, there's Goodbye World. It's a game where you're developing a game, but then you have to play the game that you're developing too.
And it didn't even look good. The game that they were developing looked like shit itself.
Yeah, it didn't even look that good. Just like every indie game. I don't know. Is it just me, or like playing an indie game about the industry not appealing at all? Like, who does this appeal to besides other indie developers? It feels way too inside, Steve.
Hey, I'll put my neck on the line. This is indie developers sucking each other off. because I've been seeing this game be in Japanese and in English being retweeted for months, like pictures and gameplay or whatever. And I figured this game's been out like forever now. No, apparently it's only coming out next week. So clearly this is everyone's like giving each other a big ol' handy over this game. I don't even know who the developer is, but I don't know. This is for them, not for us.
Yeah, this is a bit much. It's kind of like when music is about like the industry too. Like I hate that. It's like, oh, no one believed in me, or no one. It's like I don't fucking care. Give me better lyrics than that. Yeah, couple more things are interesting though. Sort of. He sigh as he sighs deeply.
I mean, I wouldn't have chosen this game out of things to say out today, but a little to the left.
Oh, okay. Let me take lead on this one. This was cute as hell. It's like, I don't know, you arrange things in a satisfying pattern, like little pasta shapes, or your drawer, here's some pencils, line them up in a certain way, right? So it's like a puzzle game, sort of like a relaxing puzzle game. Also, there's a cat. It's great. Sometimes the cat does things and tries to quote unquote help you like a cat does. I like their little presentation too.
You remember when they first showed off Stray, and I said the exact same thing I thought about this game, is that they're just trying to get cheap thrills by inserting the cat, being like, oh, look, it's got a cat, you probably should buy it.
Yep.
But then I also like ranted and raved about Stray when it came out. So, you know, what the hell do I know?
Oh, yeah. See, I don't know. I think this is appealing. Steve thought this was dumb as fuck, so he's going to have to tell me why, because, like...
Okay. Right before they showed this game, they had a sizzle reel with this other game that I thought was much more deserving of 2 minutes. I think it's called Horror Story. It's this monochrome-looking adventure game that's coming out next summer. Like, and that got a whole trailer when that was over. I'm like, oh, this looks great. But here they're doing a little to the left where, oh, all this macaroni is in the wrong order. Can we arrange it from left to right? Oh my God. These pieces of string are of varying sources, varying sizes over here. And look in this junk drawer full of wire we used to build a spaceship. Guys, this is a YouTube video ad thing that comes on before we watch the real video, not a real video game. And we should everyone online should be ashamed for saying, "Oh boy, $15, take my money."
I'm with Steve. This is bullshit. Okay, so you're sorting out the pasta. Okay, like the first thought is sorted out by longest to shortest, or shortest to longest. But what if they want the widest to least wide pasta? Or what if they want like the swirliest pasta to the straightest pasta? It's fucking stupid.
Both of you are heartless as fuck. Let me say that. You have no heart.
I do have a heart. You know why? Because this is the most extreme. Remember way back when Guitar Hero came out and all the real musicians were like, oh, you guys should just learn how to play the real guitar, man. But, you know, real guitars are fucking expensive along with lessons and things. Even a power wash simulator has its value because not everyone lives in a house and is going to rent a power wash simulator and run a power washer and run around their neighborhood and play around with that sort of thing. I guarantee if you live somewhere, I will find the messy drawer that you need to organize. You don't need to give these people $15 to play a game. That is something you need to do.
You might not have a series of predatory game sales cats that you need to sort out from most predatory to least predatory game sales.
If your house is completely organized, I will invite you to my place of work where we have the workshop garage. And boy, howdy, do we have a lot of shit that needs sorting out.
All right, enough.
If that's where you're going to get your rocks off.
No. Stop. Okay, you were being very mean to this game. For no reason. People just want to relax and arrange their pencils in an order, and you're just being a shithead. Okay? Did you notice how well behaved that cat was though in their camera time? It was sitting right there.
Yeah, let's talk about that cat for a second. Remember back when I said the cat could have been swapped out with any other character in Stray?
Your worst take on Fine Time, by the way, ever.
Yeah, I have to sort of take that back now because here the cat barely does anything at all. They looked at this game and realized all it really is let's sort the shit from one quantity to another. And they're like, oh, we need something, literally anything to make this sort of a video game. They're like, and then they're like, asshole cat. And he's not even really being an asshole. He just moves things slightly over just a few inches. That's not even a real threat.
This is just, I mean, I don't know what to do with you right now. This is terrible.
You know, as soon as they shot that trailer that they took that cat directly back to the SPCA.
I was going to say whatever they drugged it up with to make it sit on that spot for like 2 minutes. Steve, I don't know. I think every cat take you've had on the show has just been the worst, maybe.
We know I'm a dog owner.
I don't care. You don't need to act this way on Fine Time in front of the Fine Time listeners.
And I'm supposed to be afraid of that.
Wow. Let's just move on to a game you might actually like then, you fucking curmudgeon.
I'm not the one that said Sonic 3D Blast is better than Sonic CD, okay?
Well, it is. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I actually beat Sonic 3D Blast a couple times. I will never beat Sonic CD.
A couple of times? You did that more than once?
Yeah. I had played it. I emulated the Saturn version so I could hear all the music. Fucking killer music on that version.
Hey guys, Sports Story's finally coming in December. I just can't wait, except I have way too much else to play. Does anyone else think this is going to be like an especially rough time in the middle of December when people have a pile of games to play? Or is this just a Steve problem? Is this a uniquely Steve problem? Or does everyone have time to just play Sports Story when it debuts next month?
I think people were hot enough on Golf Story that they're going to make time for Sports Story. I think that this easily commands the presence.
I hope this turns out okay. The appeal of the first game is that it was like so focused and like perfectly paced for like the thing that it was trying to do. Do all sorts of sports. That's fine. I just hope they're not biting off more than they can chew. Kevin, that's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, I kind of had the same concerns originally. But when I think about Golf Story in retrospect, you know, just a lot of the like crazy shit that they had go on is what really made that a lasting memory for me, not just the like hyper focus on golf. So when they come out and they said, you know, you go to goat infested ruins, and then they got the fucking pirate ship on the train track, I'm there. Total sale day one for me.
All right. Maybe we should all.
They got fishing too, so
is fishing? Fishing is a sport.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying like they didn't need to try that hard to sell it to me. I mean, the sports hybrid was plenty. We didn't need to add even more sports.
Did you see that fishing controversy recently, guys? Or like the bass fishing controversy where someone was stuffing his fish full of like weights and fillets.
I did see that.
Fish. Yeah. He was like bullshitting his like weights.
And they had made like, they said they had made like $200,000 off like trophy winnings or some shit like that too. So that was a thing.
Yeah, it was a big deal. And when he found out he was, those other fishermen were pissed. I'm surprised they didn't fucking kill him. Holy shit. If you took money out of my pocket like so directly that way, like holy shit. Like that was
no good.
Yeah, but
I feel like sport fishing tournament people is just not a crowd you want to fuck with in the first place. Like they seem like they could get gnarly.
Oh, they know all the lakes and how deep they are. You don't want to. No, thank you. Okay, so we wanted to talk about that IGN interview that happened maybe a week and a half ago with Naoki Yoshida. Everyone calls him Yoshi P. Here, henceforth. We will call him Yoshi P as well, because the IGN interviewer asked him about diversity in Final Fantasy 16, and he had a very long and interesting answer about it. And I just kind of wanted to go over what he said paragraph by paragraph. We may or may not talk about each thing, but I just wanted to read it verbatim, and then we can say whatever we have to say about it, because I feel like that's the best way to go about it. So to just frame it, this is the actual question from IGN. In regards to diversity in the game, Can we expect to see black characters in Final Fantasy 16 or people of color, aka non-white characters in general? To clarify a bit more, there's been discussion around the trailers to date featuring mostly white characters, and I wanted to get clarity on whether we can expect the final game to be more diverse. That was the question. So Naoki Yoshida, aka Yoshi P, says this. This is a difficult question, but not one that was unexpected, seeing as diversity in entertainment media has become a much discussed topic as of late. The answer I have, however, may end up being disappointing to some, depending on individual expectations. So he goes on to say, our design concept from the earliest stages of development has always heavily featured medieval Europe, incorporating historical, cultural, political, and anthropological standards that were prevalent at the time. When deciding on a setting that was best suited to the story we wanted to tell, the story of a land beset by the Blight, we felt that rather than create something on a global scale, it was necessary to limit the scope to a single landmass, one geographically and culturally isolated from the rest of the world in an age without airplanes, television, or telephones. Okay, so I got something to say about this. I think if anywhere that he quote unquote fucked up, and that's too strong, but you know what I'm trying to say. I think it's this. I think the medieval Europe trope, like everyone was white or whatever, that's the thing I think is like, all right, come on. We know better than that, I think, at this point. Like, that's the way history paints it, but history paints a lot of things as white that weren't actually, right? So, if anything, Kevin, I feel like that's the only thing he said in here that feels a little like, okay, now, come on.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to not look at this as like as a whole as just being kind of bullshit and irrational, not just that statement. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If I would never say a developer if they've got like a concise direction that they want to take a game, if that doesn't include diversity, that nobody should make them do that. The fact of the matter is, if they do diversify the characters that we've normally been shown, that intrinsically makes the game more interesting on its own. But how are you coming and saying we're basing this off of traditional Europe? Like look at the rest of this game. This is not a historically accurate game, period. So how are you justifying it based on that?
That's the thing that doesn't. That's the thing that doesn't make any sense to me, because this isn't a real place. Like you said, this isn't Europe. It's Final Fantasy. Steve?
Speaking of Final Fantasy, we've had black characters since 7. I'm okay. We have other ones early on that that have been claimed, quote unquote, over the years, but we've had black characters since 7. Guy, so now in 16. And then this mystical world of magic and monsters, black people is a bridge too far.
He didn't need to do the Europe thing. That's all I'm saying. Like, if you want to make a game with white people, I don't fucking care. Just don't say it's based off of medieval Europe and like blah blah blah. Like, just make what you're gonna make. This isn't Europe. It's Final fucking Fantasy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to say that. It's a bad trope. So I think if he said anything that was like not out of line, but just kind of questionable, I think it was that. But then he goes on to say this. Due to the underlying geographical, technological, and geopolitical constraints of the setting, Valistea was never going to be realistically as diverse as, say, a modern-day Earth, or even Final Fantasy XIV that has an entire planet and moon's worth of nation, races, culture, blah, blah, blah. The isolated nature of this realm, however, does end up playing a large part in the story. It is one of the reasons Valistea's fate is tied to the rest of the world. Ultimately, we felt that while incorporating ethnic diversity into Valistea was important, over-incorporation to the single corner of a much larger world can end up causing a violation of those narrative boundaries we originally set for ourselves. The story we're telling is fantasy, yes, but it is also rooted in reality.
Okay.
Which reality would that be?
It's a weird one. Look, in general, I'll just say this. Diversity in art, I don't care what it is, movies, whatever. Like we've heard it a lot about movies, right? We had that whole Oscar so white thing, right? Like, and all that was justified because it's a systemic thing about the industry. I don't think it does any good personally to go up to each individual developer and say, why doesn't your game have this, that, and the other? That's not the problem. It's the industry that we need to look at. It's the whole thing. We don't need to go to every movie maker. How come you didn't have this kind of character and that kind of character? That doesn't actually change anything. And also, if it does, it creates what we don't want is tokenism. Barrett in Final Fantasy VII, the original, is embarrassing. I've thought that from the beginning. Like in Final Fantasy VII Remake, they made him an actual person who's not Mr. T. You know what I mean? Like an actual character. All of them are actual characters because I thought, the original Final Fantasy VII.
None of them were real actual people. Sorry, Kevin.
They're not, including Barrett. But that even at the time, I was 15 when that game came out, before I was even really thought about those kind of things very deeply. And even I thought that was cringe at the time. So like, we've come a long way from that, but I'm bringing that up to say, like, that's the kind of tokenism that I don't want from these games. So, like, maybe look, I understand that he probably can't come out and just say, maybe we're not comfortable making this and that kind of character. And then that raises the question of, like, well, why don't you have people on staff? Again, that goes to industry, right? It's not about one person.
Mm-hmm. I fully agree. It's just that response makes it so much worse. You're going to blame this on geographical isolation. Well, how much variety are we going to see in enemies here? Are there going to be like 3 different kind of enemies that are fairly consistent because they never got a chance to evolve outside of like the isolated geographical area they're in? I don't know. I think like artistically it's going to break the immersion because it's going to seem out of place because of a lack of diversity, and I think it's actually going to hurt the game for that reason.
Yeah,
those summons and idle loons are already borrowing from myths around the world, so it's going to be very weird that it's just a bunch of white guys like summoning deities from the Middle East or Egypt or anywhere else.
I didn't even think about that. Like Ifrit and you know what I mean? Yeah, I didn't even
there's
actually
two
think
of them on
the
logo. That's what your game is about. And I don't know.
Again, I don't want tokenism, but like again, I think with the Barrett example, that goes to that's what I'm talking about. It's industry. It's not just one person. And I think like I'm not saying IGN was wrong to ask us or anything, or they're trying to pull a gotcha, but like I just feel like we need to ask those questions industry wide, not to like a single person, because you're going to get answers like this, which, whatever. I'll read the last paragraph because I think it's interesting. Final Fantasy series of games have always inherently dealt with the conflict and struggle, especially between empowered and those used and or exploited by those privileged few. A prominent trend in human history, and a game that by design allows players to experience that conflict and struggle firsthand through dynamic, realistic battles. It can be challenging to assign distinct ethnicities to either antagonist or protagonist without triggering audience preconceptions, inviting unwarranted speculation, and ultimately stoking flames of controversy. The best part of pulling inspiration directly from history, however, is allows us to revisit and re-examine our own pasts while also allowing us to create something new. In this, I think he's correct, because I feel like what he's saying, not so much saying, is that, we aren't equipped to like have a black villain. And like, you know what I mean? Do you really want like the creators of Final Fantasy to be doing that? I don't. Like, you just don't need to. Because like people are calling for diversity, but it's like, also, do you want these guys to be doing it? I don't personally.
To me, I feel like the statement that came before that portion kind of like ruins any credibility. My assumption, and maybe I'm vastly wrong about this, but my assumption is any lack of diversity is probably attributable to the same reason that Finn was pulled off of any Star Wars posters by Disney that were released in various parts of the world.
Yes.
That's my assumption. Again, I don't know that, but to me, this is probably more of a sales concern and like morbid, like just being forced to like hide that parts of it. So maybe they found it just easier to not deal with it.
Yeah.
I mean, Andre's right about the whole thing too. I mean, otherwise you end up with their name. Otherwise, you end up with Blizzard and their diversity algorithm.
Yeah, see, that's the point we don't want to get to, right? So, like,
where they're making Overwatch characters by pretending they're drafting a D&D sheet.
Well, yeah, I mean, honestly, like, and I'm not saying it didn't come from a real place. Who knows? But after that diversity thing, you played Overwatch too, Steve. Look at Sojourn. She's a black female Canadian cyborg lady, right? Like, it feels pulled from their. I can't help but think about that algorithm they had, right?
That sure was some game of Mad Libs, let me tell you.
Yeah, so
let's be careful here because Canadians are fiercely proud of that. So watch what you say.
Okay, excuse me. Well, the Canadian. I probably mentioned this before. The Canadian stage they added, probably in her honor. You do start in a curling rink, so that is the spawn. That is the spawn room.
Well, my people have been fighting for representation for years, so let's take this seriously.
Okay. Well, now you have Jeff. What's his name, doing all the award shows. So the Canadians have taken over.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like in a place that's like real, like it would be silly if like Fallout didn't have any diversity, right? Because that's fucking America, right? Like, of course, like you're not going to have all white people in a game like that, right? It's again, we need to look industry-wide. I think it's like. We need to point out when individual games do something that feels wrong, like the original Watch Dogs or something. But going to Yoshi P for this and expecting an answer not like this, and he's trying his best. I don't think he's a bad person or anything, but it puts him in the position to say something like this. So I don't know. I thought it was interesting to go over regardless.
Hashtag Steve is canceled.
Why are you canceled, Bill?
I don't know. I probably said something wrong.
You didn't say a whole lot here, so I think you're fine.
Canceled for too much fishing.
Too much of that fishing. A couple other things real quick. One, the new Nintendo financials came out, which we always love around here. So let's just cherry pick a few of these because I think some of these numbers are interesting. I think we all want to talk about Splatoon 3 being at 7.9 million. Let's just call it 8. God damn, guys.
Didn't it do like almost 4 on opening weekend?
Yeah, in Japan alone. We didn't even know our numbers until now. Like, you guys find any of this stuff? Like, I kind of find it interesting that the Let's Go games are hanging around the top 10 here at 14.8 million. It doesn't feel like they're gonna. I mean, it feels like a gold and silver version of those should have came out already. Let's Go Peekaboo or something. I don't know, but like, I don't know. Do you think they're ever gonna follow up on those since these were so successful?
Man, I don't know anymore. I would have almost thought after Arceus, which is actually on the top at 13, at almost 14 million itself after almost a year. I think they might be heading in that direction where they make another single player adventure experience as opposed to the Pokemon for beginners again. Although I wouldn't mind Let's Go Johto. Take my little Pichu around.
You know what really stuck out to me here? Who the fuck is buying Nintendo Switch Sports? Because it felt to me like that came out and it just went over like a wet fart and nobody cared and nobody played it. I was very surprised to see that on a high seller list.
Yeah, 6.1 million. 16 million. Oh my God, that would be insane. But no, I think this isn't surprising at all, Kevin, to me. I thought it was well regarded. It reviewed well. People who played it seemed to like it. I think Steve has it. I know Vin has it. And
I do not have it.
Oh, I thought you had it.
No, I tried the limited time demo, but I liked some of it, but I'm like, no.
And I have nothing against Nintendo Switch Sports. I just felt like it did not make a splash at all. I felt like I heard nothing about it when it came out.
Yeah, well, sure enough, here it is. People give a shit, huh?
Well, what's going on, Kevin, is that they're waiting for soccer to finally launch next month.
Which they said in that direct
No,
that
not
like
soccer.
sorry,
Golf. Golf is coming next month.
golf is a must. Steve, you were sort of put off by the Mario Strikers numbers, huh?
Not put off, but 2.17 million copies of Mario Strikers Battle League. I figured being the world's game and with, everyone being like, we need more Mario Strikers from Next Level Games. I figured that would have at least crossed the 3 to 4 million slot, but I guess not.
Mm-hmm.
Kirby being over 5 is insane to me. I never thought that game would sell that much. I'm so glad it did. It is maybe my favorite game of the year still.
I think that's officially the best-selling Kirby now.
It's gotta be.
Passing Dreamland, I think is the record holder.
And Dreamland only because it had been around for so fucking long, right? It's war of attrition on that one. Or what is it called in sports when a compiler? This is a compiler, stat compiler. But yeah, Ring Fit Adventure 14.8, that still baffles me. I know it got big during the Rona, but still, that continues to sell. Just wild stuff, man.
Did we ever get... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, something I was surprised we didn't see was Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes, because I remember a few weeks in, they said they cracked 1 million on that, so I thought that might have found its way to like number 7 on the additional sales number list, but no.
It's probably at like 1.7 or something. It's probably just like bumbling under, if I had to guess.
I mean,
did we ever get final numbers on Metroid Dread?
I don't think so. I know everyone was like, oh no, it's only, barely over 2 million. And I'm like, guys, that's kind of what it does. But
yeah, I was very wrong about that. I really thought that was going to push like 4 or 5.
Well, my logic for this, and I know different time, different whatever, but like Metroid Prime 3 on Wii only sold like 1.7 or something like that. So it's just kind of like, I just don't think people are going to care no matter how many people are buying it.
I don't understand why. It seems like it has something that could seize a fairly wide appeal.
Yeah, but it just never seems to get there. Well, especially Metroid Dread is like fairly difficult compared to like some other Metroids. You know what I mean? It's not easy. So, it's only going to have the audience it has. But okay, if we're all Nintendo financial doubt, Kevin, next big question.
Okay, where do I start? This is a very large, sticky mess, but I'm going to try and condense it down as much as I can. You might remember in 2020, studio director Marty Stratton of id Software made a lengthy Reddit post, basically straight up blaming Mick Gordon for a number of issues with the Doom Eternal soundtrack. He talked about deliverables not being made on time, it having to complete additional work in-house as a result. And it kind of fizzled out. It was a little bit of a news story, but it never turned into a big public thing. Now, recently, about a week ago, Mick Gordon released a very long, very detailed post basically demonstrating that Marty was lying, and he talked about being offered a 6-figure sum to stay quiet about the situation, to take blame for the soundtrack issues. There was kind of different discussions at various points about having him go back and continue doing work on the soundtrack after there were already issues brought to light. He also made mention of the fact that it had used a little bit over double the amount of material that he had developed that they were contractually able to use. So that there is a lot more to this story, and it is quite worth reading his statement. We quite often see these statements where people come out and they make these claims. Maybe the similar or the most recent. It was the Bayonetta voice actor thing, which this is very different than that, because I feel like Mick did a very good job in providing solid evidence and backstory as to what actually happened. And he was also very clear that the beef was with Marty Stratton, the head of the studio, not the studio as a whole, and that he doesn't want the public to go after id as a result of Marty's actions. And now just coming in hot as of a few hours before recording, Bethesda released a statement, and I'll read this verbatim because I think it's worth getting into a little bit. So they said the recent post by Mick Gordon both mischaracterized and misrepresented the team at id Software, the development of Doom Eternal, Marty Stratton, and Chad Mossholder with a one-sided and unjust account of an irreparable professional relationship. We're all aware of the details and history in this matter and unequivocally support Marty and Chad and the team at id. We reject the distortion of truth and selective presentation of incomplete facts. We stand ready with full and complete documented evidence to disclose in an appropriate venue as needed. The statements posted online have incited harassment and threats of violence against Marty, Chad, and the id Software team. Any threats or harassment directed towards members of our team will be met with swift and appropriate action to protect their health and safety. We remain incredibly proud of id's previous collaborations with Mick Gordon and ask that fans refrain from reaching conclusions based on his account, and more importantly, from attacking any of the individuals in any of the individuals mentioned on either side, including Marty, Chad, or Mick. I don't know what really sticks out like a sore thumb to me. This was really started off by a Reddit post that Marty Stratton had posted, and now they're coming out making a claim that Mick was very out of line and is bringing this upon them unwelcomed.
This is such a doozy. There's so much here because again, I don't know who to believe here. I really don't. I mean, do you, Kevin? Do you have a side? Because I don't.
Yeah,
really know.
And usually that's where I fall. I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be more to the story. Just reading that statement that Mick had posted and kind of some of the materials he's got to back it up. I don't know. I felt fairly and I'm not saying I can't be proven wrong, but I felt pretty confident that a lot of what he was saying had a lot of accuracy there. And again, I don't know. I just feel like they have no platform to claim that he's inviting harassment to them, because I'm sure Mick dealt with the exact same thing when Marty fired the first shot on fucking Reddit. Yeah. Like the head of id Software is going on Reddit on r/Doom and making that post. Like, get real. And now you're crybabying that id Software is taking the harassment. Like, I don't know, whatever.
You're right, actually. Now that when you put it that way, you're absolutely right. The Reddit post sort of set this off. Why did he do that in the first place then? If he really, that's the only thing that Bethesda can't really reconcile for me is the Reddit thing. Why did Marty do that then?
Outside of the facts of what happened as far as contractual items, I think just looking at, who acted appropriately or inappropriately and kind of what came out of that in the court of public opinion, I think it immediately loses there, or Marty himself loses there.
How do I? It's so messy. The Mix account was so fucking long. I read like half of it. I skimmed a lot of it though. And what he's saying does feel correct, right? Like it feels so. Why would someone go out of their way to refute this so thoroughly if they're not telling the truth? Because like usually, if you want to, I want to seem like I'm right, you're going to make a statement like Bethesda did, incomparable facts. They put facts in quotation marks, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just like it feels sort of. This is fake news, guys, like that kind of statement. That doesn't mean that they're not right, because again, I don't know here.
I think we're going to eventually, because this tweet from Bethesda popped up a few hours ago. And yeah, I pretty much skimmed through the Reddit post too. And I think a lot of it is true, but with these sort of things, we only know what they let us see, right? And here's Bethesda over here saying they've got their full and complete documented evidence, which means, look, Microsoft told us we need to get our shit in a row in case lawsuit time's coming.
Do you think that came from Microsoft? Because I kind of wondered, like, I felt like this was going to trigger Big Daddy Microsoft into coming and kind of doing more of an internal investigation. I would have been surprised if higher ups at Microsoft would have let this statement go out had they known it was going out.
Yeah, because like Big Daddy Microsoft would just do settlements. How much do you want, Mick? And we can never talk about this again, right? Because I feel like that would be the way to go with this.
I think so too, but I don't think they can talk about that right now or ever, or depending on what kind of terms they come up with. This is still an ongoing story, as they say.
What a mess. Yeah, again, I don't know what to believe here. I really don't know. I guess that's the big question, huh? What side do you feel here? Or just like, because I really don't know. This is reminding me of, do you remember the Bungie composer who did like all the Halo music and then he did like most of Destiny until like he got booted out somehow or something happened there?
Yeah,
right?
I kind of remember that.
Yeah, that guy. I can't remember. Well, his name is also Marty, I think, which is what this story made me think of it. But like, yeah, that was a whole thing, and they settled or whatever, and Bungie and whatever, that was a whole thing. So shit can happen with the composers. What I thought was interesting though about Mick's statement is that like the elements stuff, like elements of music, because the music is like changing and growing or something depending on what you're doing in the game. So you have like all these like pieces of things, which is like a very interesting way to compose, I guess. Have like hard, here is the song that is playing in the level. So like to make that into like an original soundtrack is probably really difficult. So like, man, what a mess. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot else, but Jesus Christ. I guess I'm very interested to see where this goes now that we have that Bethesda statement, because this could have just blown in the wind and that was it. But
some good shit for podcast topics.
Oh my God. I love this.
Oh boy. I think I almost came. What?
Oh, what? Yo, you need to clean that up. Let's take a break. Change your shorts. We'll be right back, folks. We are back. You sons of beaches. You daughters of beaches.
Got all cleaned up from Steve's accident before the break?
Yep, he's all cleaned up. How do you feel now, Steve?
Empty and hollow.
Wow. Like a night?
Could have at least went with relieved.
I mean, not with the porn he watches. I mean, geez. So... All right, we're going to do a Twitter mailbag. First of all, thank you guys for all your questions. You've been great. But before we get to that, Kevin has a music note. So let's start with that.
Yes, I've got something that I want to talk about, and I'm in a dialogue a little bit before I start. I've talked on the show previously about how I have a hard time getting into newer music, or really anything that come out since I was a teenager or in my early 20s. But I want to talk about a very specific exception to that rule, and I very clearly remember the first time I heard the first single off of this album. The album is Two, not number two, but TU, by a band called Alien Weaponry. And it was in 2018. I was sitting in my truck and I just heard it on satellite radio. I wasn't even specifically, listening. I was doing something else and I heard this song and immediately I was like, what the fuck is that? That is super good. Knew nothing about the band, never had heard of the band before. I just really liked that song. So I took a picture with my phone. I thought, I'm going to check this out when I've got more time. And I kind of wound up going down the rabbit hole a little bit about this band, Alien Weaponry. And they're very interesting for a couple of reasons. They were originally formed in 2010. It was two brothers. And in 2010, these brothers were ages 8 and 10 years old. So even you think by the time I heard this in 2018, they would have been 16 and 18. Again, this just kind of knocked my socks off specifically because of the music. So that's saying wild. A lot in its own. Yeah. And what's more, these two brothers and the other bandmate who has been since replaced, they're in New Zealand, and they belong to an indigenous tribe. So they've got Maori ancestry. And so they incorporate a lot of the traditional music, and not just the music, but the storytelling and history that actually directly relates to their ancestors within this music. So actually, I wound up finding a few years ago a documentary from Vice Asia. And they did a 25-minute documentary on this band and kind of where this music comes from, and how the band developed, and it's not something that they do as a gimmick by any stretch of the imagination. They actually use that music as a way of especially with their ancestry. There's a very small amount of people left that have that ancestry, so they're really maintaining that culture, predominantly through that music. And so not only just that portion of it, but the metal side, it's definitely heavy metal. They do it expertly, especially for being so young. It's fair. It's kind of, I would say predominantly like thrash with maybe a little bit of new metal thrown in. If anybody's familiar with the band Gojira, I would say that's probably the closest parallel that I would be able to draw. So yeah, I just thought it was really interesting that I was able to get so hooked with no knowledge, and there's still such an interesting story behind this band. I wouldn't suggest this music to anybody that's not interested in metal. If you are, I certainly would. But to anybody, I would suggest to go and check out that Vice documentary on the band, because it's extremely interesting just from a cultural preservation aspect, and how well they can do that, and again, not have it be a gimmick, but have it sound genuinely good, and being so young. So super interesting. So both that album too and the follow-up album, if you're into metal, definitely worth checking out. But yeah, that Vice documentary is great if you're interested.
That sounds very fascinating, just because young people doing like legit music is always something I find interesting. Like whether it's, Prince at 19, in 1978, I think, making his first record. He's 19. He can play every fucking instrument in the world. He's already a guitar god. He's still a teenager. You know what I mean? Like those sort of like not just like the supreme talents like him, but just even like, I mean, I know everyone dunked on him at the time, but like, Hanson or whatever, they were like kids making music. Right. I always think that stuff is like cool. So I think
Yeah, what was so great about it too, there was nothing even about that first album that sounded, sophomore or amateur to it at all. You could have told me that band that came off their, sixth album, and they just kind of hit some mainstream relevancy, and I would have totally bought it.
Right. So to be that polished, that young, I think, to not even like to know it from the get-go, I think is a fascinating part, just to not even have to have all the experience to get there. Because, before, especially in the, 60s and 70s, you get bands on a multi-album contract because you were trying to develop them, because you knew like those first couple records might be kind of shaky or whatever, but they needed the experience. If you're that young and you don't need that's the fascinating part to me, Yeah. So yeah. Sounds cool. Also, Alien Weaponry, just an excellent name for a.
They talked about when they named, and this kind of gives some context to begin about how recently they were formed. They got that term off of the movie District 9 when they first seen it. And apparently that phrase was used in there, and they're like, yeah, we were kids and we thought that was a cool saying and it would be cool for a metal band. And now they're playing it like some of the largest metal festivals around the world.
It's kind of amazing, like when you hit how old you are, when you hit whatever age that is, so whatever influences you. Like that guy who makes Flower and Flow, Genova Chen. Obviously, he got Genova from Final Fantasy VII, because he came, when he came to the United States from China or something, he wanted a different name that wasn't Chinese, so he chose Genova. You know, like
Right.
that's so funny to think about, you know, but
It is, but it makes me feel old as fuck because when I seen District 9, I seen it as an adult when I was in my like early 20s in the theater.
yeah.
So, you know, the fact that they were 8 and 10 and picked that name, that does make me feel a little bit gray.
Yeah, that's it. It always makes you feel old, you know, but it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Okay, so let's get to our Twitter mailbag. We're going to zip through a whole bunch of these here. We're going to pretty much do all the ones that we got. In fact, not pretty much. We are going to do all the ones. Again, thank you for everyone for submitting things. Let's just start with one that's a little easier because it's something we covered on the show before, but it's worth just giving a summary of. Triptonic asks, why do you think Sony hasn't pushed PlayStation Plus further into a product more resembling Game Pass, since Game Pass seems to be a huge selling point for Microsoft/Xbox? I'll just go first and just say it's because Sony is the industry leader. Microsoft is playing catch up. They're behind Nintendo. They're behind Sony. They're giving the store away. Sony doesn't need to give away their product to sell. They can sell their games for $60, $70 a pop. Microsoft can't because no one's going to show up for them. So some people will. It's not like they're going to be total flops, but they obviously know they can't push the software. The Japanese companies can. So that's why they have Game Pass. Sony doesn't need to do that. They're going to sell 10 zillion copies of God of War Ragnarok this holiday season, and it doesn't matter. They don't need a Game Pass. Do you guys basically agree with that? That's all there is to it.
I think that's mostly where I'm at. I agree that it is a big selling point, but to a degree, it does also optically to me seem like it somewhat cheapens the Xbox brand. So, you know, I don't think of one as being better than the other as far as from a business standpoint. There's just kind of two different ways of looking at things. And I think, again, as Andre said, because Sony's the market leader, they can be allowed a little bit more tolerance in not doing that.
Yeah.
Also, look at it from this angle. If they could sell Steve, the Nintendo guy, God of War Ragnarok for full price on opening week, do they really need a Game Pass?
No. And that's something interesting that people want to buy. So that's why it's here. What would Microsoft, if they didn't have Game Pass, what would be on the shelves this holiday season for them? Vampire Survivors? Like, seriously, like what would it be, right? You don't have the software.
No,
so
what did they have that's really appealing on Game Pass this holiday season?
Nothing.
I mean, that's not really going to help push consoles this Christmas, I don't think either.
Yeah, everything got delayed already this summer. So, you know, So, okay. So, friend of the show, Curmudgeon in Crime and Pokepow to Steve, Lucentai asks us, what is the most memorable game you've ever gotten for Christmas? That's a good one. So I'll go first. For me, it's Pikmin. I don't exactly know why it's Pikmin, though. I was definitely an adult by this time. I was 19 years old, so it's not like it was some weird childhood memory or something. And speaking of age gaps and stuff, that's probably the weirdest thing for me. I was like an adult when the GameCube came out, and you guys were not. That is so weird to me. I just can't imagine.
Children.
Yeah, you were kitties, little kitty cats. But I just remember plowing through Pikmin during that weirdo week between Christmas and New Year's or whatever. That's always like, feels like you're stuck in some sort of holiday stasis. Yeah, I don't know. I just remember it really vividly. Pikmin. Steve, what's yours? What do you remember getting for Christmas?
I'm going to cheat a bit because I technically got it on December 23rd. That's when I got the GameCube in 2001. Yes, Andre was an adult. I was a freshman in high school, so you know, I had my whole life ahead of me, hopes and dreams, you know. But it's a cute story. I was helping my grandma move things into our house for reasons, and then but at the end of it all, somehow GameCube and Luigi's Mansion ended up in my room. So I'm like, oh, this is just great. And I hooked that up right away. And yes, I would get Pikmin and Smash Brothers a few days later, but similar to Andre, I spent a good chunk of Christmas break just playing the fuck out of Luigi's Mansion. I don't know. Well, I do know why I kept coming back to it, but and then I did it again the next month, but just GameCube Christmas 2001. for me.
Good stuff.
2001 was good. 2002 for me was better. I was a late Metroid bloomer, and I didn't play a Metroid game until I got both Prime and Fusion and a nice new shiny Wavebird in Christmas 2002. And
Ooh.
boy, let me tell you, that was I was soaking it up. And
That's great.
I mean, always Christmas, like Christmas is more linked to video games by far than anything else. That's probably predominantly what I think of when I think about Christmas. But I had days and days and days, and I got super into it. So I think back to that time very fondly.
Yeah, the early 2000s for all of us. That's interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the only other one I can think of is that for Christmas '96, my dad, in his infinite wisdom, never has any idea what to get me, even back then. So for Christmas '96, he just gave me $100. Go to Toys R Us and get whatever you want. So I went and got Killer Instinct Gold, which was $84.99.
God,
MSRP.
That's right. Holy shit. Those games are expensive.
So that took, and plus California tax, that took almost my whole $100. I barely had money to go get a fucking burger at Carl's Jr. next door afterwards. I mean, it was just like, that was the whole 100 basically, but I didn't care. I just remember thinking I was a cool 14-year-old going to Toys R Us by myself and getting my own Killer Instinct Gold or whatever and shit. So yeah, I do remember that as well. If you think games are too much now, kids, don't. I mean, you weren't alive for the mid '90s, and thank God you weren't, because Jesus Christ. Anyway, so this is sort of a related question from our friend Manu, or it goes on Twitter as Monucular Bomb. Get it? Haha. He asks us, are there any games you consider holiday or Christmas time games that you revisit? Kevin, you go first, because mine's a little bit related.
Yeah, for years after Double Dash came out, that was very much a Christmas thing, and that overall, most of my family wasn't that into video games, but we did all do Mario Kart, and especially around Christmas, that was ongoing thing. So I still get the Christmas warm and fuzzies anytime I think about Double Dash. Maybe that's why I'm a little overly nostalgic for it.
A Double Dash is a great one, honestly. I mean, for a long time, I thought it was the best one until 8 and some other stuff came out. But for me, it's also a Mario Kart, because Mario Kart 64 was played so much during any gathering, because like our house was always the Thanksgiving house and the Christmas party house, and it was always the gathering spot. So, we always said, I don't know, whether we were making stuff or did potluck or whatever the hell we did, right? Everyone came over. So, of course, I had all the video games. So I had to clean up your room so everyone could play, right? All right, fine. It was always Mario Kart 64. And everyone just loved playing, just whether we didn't do a whole lot of battle mode. We just did a lot of Grand Prix and stuff like that. It was just like Mario Kart 64. I remember playing for pretty much the entire N64 era. Other stuff like Diddy Kong Racing and other things never really got as much play as that. It was always that. So I just remember a lot of Christmases, Thanksgivings and stuff playing that one.
Did you have all 4 official Nintendo 64 controllers, or did the youngest kid get like the shitty little, like the foam
The
steering wheel one or whatever?
Okay, you guys know what a snob I am. I would never settle for those pieces of shit. No, we had 4 legit Nintendo 64 controllers. Okay, I wouldn't.
Fuck.
Yeah, I wouldn't buy those. That was the worst era for third-party controllers. So you have to admit, like the PlayStation and 64 and shit, they were so bad. Oh my god!
I ended up with a bunch later on. Holy shit, they're bad.
They're so bad. Like the N64 ones, they always try to like quote unquote fix it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, no, it is the way it is because reasons. Anyway,
God, I've seen some shitty ass NES third party controllers though. Like some of them were really bad.
They're bad.
Yeah, we had Mario Kart like everyone else, but moving a bit further along in college, before there was Mario Kart Wii, we did Wii Sports. Everyone likes Wii Sports. Yay, let's do tennis. We'll fling our arms around, and that's like tennis. But then later on, you didn't want to play tennis anymore, and that's when Bomberman 93 Virtual Console 600 points would see a lot of play, like a lot more play than I ever thought I would ever get to see at any time.
That's a weird one, but why not? I guess.
I mean, I bought it on. My friend would stuck it on. I would bring a Wavebird over, so we'd all just we got that a lot of that 5-player Bomberman 93, and when we didn't feel like waggling anymore for a Christmas or 3, it was something.
That sure is something. Our friend Kiefer, host of the podcast Select and Start, definitely listen to that if you haven't already. He has a great mind and he brings it to you on that podcast. But he asks us, what's a great feature or mechanic you've seen in a game that you otherwise didn't care for? This is a great question.
Yeah, Kiefer always has to throw the hard ball at us. So everyone else is tossing us, the easy ones. He's like, solve for X.
Yeah, it's an equation. But no, this was not super difficult to think of, but I do have an example, and for me, it is Bionic Commando. I don't think that game is very good. That bionic arm, though, that whole mechanic, the hook of the game is good. I love that thing. You don't jump, you can only use that arm to get around obstacles, to climb up places, to swing around. It's cool. I just wish it were like a better game. The arcade or NES. NES is better, I guess. And we're not going to talk about Bionic Commando 2009 at all. But yeah, I don't know. Not a very good game, but excellent mechanic. Bionic Commando, if you've seen it, you never forget it. So that's my pick.
So guys, I don't think I brought it up on this show yet, but I ended up not caring for the messenger, but not for lack of trying. That first piece of the messenger is really good at being Ninja Gaiden. Like if it just was those Ninja Gaiden-y levels and then you beat the game, it'd probably be in my pantheon of top indie games. But then it insists on being a Metroidvania, and I know that's our no-no word, but it's so cynical. That's what it is. It's a Metroidvania. Ha ha ha. And all the trappings. But before it does that, it is just so good at doing the Ninja Gaiden stuff.
It's like, it's almost as if they were like, hey guys, have you ever wished Ninja Gaiden levels were 15 minutes long? No, I actually never wished for that. But yes, Kevin.
I hesitate to bring this up because you guys always give me, you don't even get mad. You just get disappointed and you give me the look. But Octopath Traveler, and this maybe is a stretch for talking about feature or mechanic. Again, and I told these guys offline, I put 46 hours into Octopath Traveler trying to get into it. It just let me down. I didn't like what I got out of the story and how the characters interacted with each other. It just wasn't what I had it built up in my head to be. But I fucking loved the combat for that game. I think for a turn-based RPG, it has, and I know it kind of built off Bravely Default's, Brave and Default system. But I think Octopath Traveler did it better. It was extremely complex, but relatively simple on the surface. It was challenging. Everything was great about the combat. And that's, to be honest, when I think about what did carry me through 46 hours of that game before giving up on it, that it was probably the majority of that was how much I love the combat. So I'm sorry. I know you don't love me anymore, but Octopath hurt me a little bit.
You know what, though? I'll forgive you a little bit because I actually think that aspect of the game is underrated. Octopath's combat is exceptional.
It is, though.
It is maybe the best turn-based combat I've ever played. It is so fucking good, and I don't think a lot of people talk about it that way. So even though you're objectively wrong, I'm glad you said that because
you'll let me live another day.
Yes, it's true.
But you'll forgive us if we don't invite you to the Octopath Traveler 2 post-game show.
Oh, we're playing that right away. You better clear your slate in February.
Yeah,
we're playing that.
I pretty much have to.
I'm almost tempted to play that too, because I just feel like I already know what Octopath is, and I'm not going in with this built-up expectation, but we'll see.
It's like how I went to see Batman versus Superman, even though Man of Steel was like the worst movie I've ever seen. We had to go see it just because, okay, now we know right? So we have to see this.
And was it better going in with that expectation? Could you just appreciate it for what it was?
I did not appreciate it because I thought it sucked. However, I was prepared for the bullshittiness, so I could like not be like, "Oh man, Batman versus Superman, this is gonna be so fucking cool," like finally, you know what I mean? I didn't have that expectation, so I didn't like really piss myself off. I could just laugh at how stupid it was, which is basically what I did. Okay, Ham Sandcastle asks us, "What is the definitive Thanksgiving video game?" And he has the addendum. Interpret this however you wish.
A truly foolish question, given that Thanksgiving was over a month ago.
Oh, Canada. oh, Canada. That's so cute. Pinch her little cheeks sometimes, huh, Steve?
If only I could reach that far.
Okay. Go ahead. I think you have a better answer than me.
It still is my go-to game because I have a feeling sometime next week it's Pokemon. Whether I'm grinding quietly or I'm just setting up the egg trades where I have a whole lot of a baby something and I gotta just send it out to the ether. Lucente knows what I'm talking about. And I just send it out to the ether for other random Pokemons. It's just so easy to do. And I feel like I do this all Thanksgiving and Christmas when I'm not occupied with other activities. So definitely whatever Pokemon we're up to.
Okay, that's a good one because they always come out around Black Friday-ish.
And they do come, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't have a real answer for this, but this gives me an excuse to tell this story. It's probably the funniest commercial I've ever seen. And Lucenti saw it with me too. So we both saw this. We're at a mutual friend of ours house. We're all visiting for Friendsgiving, basically. And this is like 2012, I think. And there was a commercial for Best Buy where this couple was giving each other gifts or something. And she opens her gift first and she looks at it and it's a Call of Duty game. She looks at it and deadpan just says, "Sweet, Black Ops 2. She was not excited to receive Call of Duty for Christmas, but that wasn't the tone of the commercial. She was genuinely supposed to be like excited about it. But this actor didn't give a fuck. And why would she? It's Black Ops 2. But the way she said it just stuck in her head forever. Me and Vin, just to this day, we still say "Sweet Black Ops 2" or Modern Warfare 2 or whatever the new Call of Duty is. We still to this day say that just because it was so ridiculous. So if I think about a game on Thanksgiving / Black Friday ish, I think of that commercial, and I can't find that online. I've searched for it. We've never found it again, but it lives in our memories, and I'm glad he was there when that happened. Because otherwise, I'd feel like I was insane. So,
all right,
Kevin, do you have a real game for your fake Thanksgiving?
I've got a real brief one because I don't have it because Thanksgiving is so early in the year. I don't intrinsically tie it to video games in my mind. But when I was quite little, I do remember being at my aunt and uncle's for Thanksgiving one year, and they had an old NES, and all they had was Tetris, which I had already played Tetris to death, and fucking Where's Waldo on the NES. So I remember sitting there,
oh my god,
desperately trying to play Where's Waldo on the NES with that shitty little magnifying glass.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it was rough. It was not a good Thanksgiving for me.
No, that's terrible. Oh, you know what I remember for Thanksgiving? I had the N64 in Thanksgiving 96 because I was the first one the family to get it, and we brought it up to my grandfather's house. So my grandfather on my dad's side, he lived in LA. So every other Thanksgiving we go up there and visit that part of the family. And I brought the N64. So we did a lot of Pilot Wing 64 cannonball into like mountains and shit and just make them scream. It was great. We'd make them crash with the jetpack and stuff and just bounce off of whatever and just ooh and ah at Birdman and the chill music. So I remember a lot of Piloting 64 Thanksgiving 96 for some reason. And we rented Clay Fighter 63 and a third, and it was trash. It was so bad. So yeah, there's that too. Brooks asks us, friend of the show Brooks, is there an IP, a single game or series, you wish another developer could have made a game for instead of the original developer. Great question, Brooks. I'll just go first. I wish Inti Creates could have made a real Mega Man X game. I feel like that's a little bit of cheating or a cop out, Steve, but honestly, I do, because like, you know, they did 4 Mega Man Zero games. They did 2 Mega Man ZX games. They made 3 fake Mega Man games in Gunvolt or whatever. Obviously, this is like their thing. If they wanted to make a Mega Man X9, which I have long said is a terrible idea. Like, this is one case, Steve, where I feel like Mega Man X could just use a reboot.
I mean, it couldn't be worse than whatever the PSP one was. I did not care for that one.
Oh, that was okay. The Mega Man X remake on PSP, that was fine.
I mean, I'm sure it's fine. I just didn't like the way it felt.
I thought it was fine.
Oh my god, we're gonna get back into Ghoul Patrol. Don't say I don't like the way it felt.
Oh no.
As soon as I heard that those words strung together, I immediately had PTSD.
Oh no, I thought it was I thought it was fine at the time. I'd have to go back and actually play it, which is impossible now. So
what I'd like to see is we're never going to see it because anyway, the company doesn't exist anymore. I know Andre doesn't like it, but I like Breath of Fire for what it is. As I guess, you know, Capcom attempted to make an RPG, but yeah, I think Quintet would have handled it a little better. They're the ActRaiser Illusion of Gaia people that doesn't really exist anymore. They folded into Enix, and now that's Square Enix, and now they're kind of gone. But I wouldn't have minded a bit more whimsy that could have brought along.
I would have liked to have seen them follow up, because I think the same team made Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter and Mega Man X Command Mission. So if they would have furthered the Breath of Fire thing, I think that could have been okay. But as we got into the generation after that, we know Japanese games just something happened there. So I guess that was impossible. So, yeah,
man, I keep forgetting about Command Mission.
It's good.
Yeah, I know. It was on GameCube.
Yep. Kevin, you got one?
Have you guys ever played Cities Skylines?
I have not. I like looking at it, but I have not played it.
It is as close as we're going to get to bringing SimCity back, and it's very good. I would like to see Colossal Order, the developer that does City Skylines, take Roller Coaster Tycoon and still let them have that like weird, creepy ass music that was in the original Roller Coaster Tycoon, but reboot that franchise. That's definitely what I would like.
That could be interesting. I've never done the Roller Coaster Tycoon thing either. Because I've tried a little bit, and like too many people died on my death contraption. So like
that's the best part. You make
Andre, after a while, that just becomes the goal of the game.
Yeah, launches everybody as far as you can across the amusement park.
Yeah, see how far they can go.
Yeah, same as Zoo Tycoon. You just like eventually, let the elephants out in with the public.
All right, one more question here before we get out of here. Trey, our friend. What the hell is his name on Twitter? Trey, internet Trey. I don't remember right now. What's your favorite use of a licensed song for a game? It can be the original rendition or a cover or whole sports soundtrack. It doesn't matter, anything. So I have an answer here. I don't know if it's my total favorite or anything, but it's surely my most recent thought of one. So I guess I'll just say that one here. It's when Borderlands 3 at the end uses Alicia Keys' Girl on Fire. I can't really say why they use Girl on Fire without spoiling the game. So if you've played Borderlands 3, you know what I'm talking about. And it's a great moment. I thought that was so cool. Usually I think like using licensed music in a game in that manner is a little cheesy, and it is. But I think in this context, I thought it was great.
I never finished Borderlands 3, but I'm going to go ahead and make an educated guess that a girl caught on fire at the end.
Yeah. I too will also assume, without ever touching a Borderlands game, that there is a girl lit ablaze.
Yes, a girl caught on fire, and then Alicia Keys, as rendered in Borderlands 3, literally walked up to her and sang "Girl on Fire" to her while she was on fire and like dying.
That sounds wildly irresponsible.
Yeah, it was very irresponsible of her. She should have really helped her out.
All right, let me at this one, because I almost went the basic bitch route and talked about Gears of War using Mad World, because I did think that was really good, even though it was famously overplayed. But
for the time, it was appropriate.
Came up with a way better one, which I actually do think is a better example of using a licensed song for a game. Test Drive 6, when you booted it up, the intro screen, along with a pretty good movie for the time, had a cover of Gary Newman's Cars by Fear Factory. One of the greatest intros of all time. And the cover is really good because they didn't like fuck with it too much. And it just like perfectly fits the tone of the intro. So loved that. Makes me want to be young again.
Sometimes rock covers of especially like new wave stuff can get really muddy, but then some people can do it right. Like if they have a real reference for the material, like Deftones, like most of their covers are like that late 70s, early 80s, like new wave shit that I really like. So like they really do that stuff great. So yeah, it depends on the band, but that sounds good. Yeah.
Boot up YouTube and check out the Test Drive 6 intro. It's great.
Yeah, I'm not good at music like these other guys, so I'm going to go with a fairly recent example too, and just I really like the I think they call them climax covers in the Bayonetta games of I guess the Moon songs. I guess we'd call them. They're the Sinatra songs, but they up the tempo and make it more appropriate for the high octane action that they're trying to provide, and then they play them for real at the end of the game. I like that. There's a simple artistic pleasure I find in that, but I also need to reiterate that the Stand By Me cover at the end of a Final Fantasy 15 makes me roll my eyes at least once every other week or so.
I remember when you talked about that game and we had to come back from break because you forgot to talk about it. And I had to be like, hey, you need to mention this stupid shit.
It was appropriate, but I'm like, oh my fucking God, why couldn't they?
Look, though.
It was the right song, but Jesus Christ.
Just like Girl on Fire. Okay, again, I'm not going to spoil, but Girl on Fire is similarly appropriate. So it may kind of make you roll your eyes, but like also like Girl on Fire is kind of a great song. I don't like Stand By Me at all, but whatever. It's okay.
Fine.
it's fine. I feel like it's just like boomer carryover. Yeah, it's okay. Anyway, again, guys, thanks for the mailbag. This was great. We'll try to do them more often. I'm surprised we've only done 2 so far. I guess we don't want to wear it out.
We'll try to have our thesis for Kiefer by the end of the year.
Yeah. Oh God, you better. Yeah, Keith, you better like next time. You better ask us like I don't even have. I was going to say some smarty pants shit, and I don't have anything. Well, okay, there goes my joke.
And it still wound up being funny.
Yeah, see? It came right back around. All right, let's get the fuck out of here. Find Time Podcast on Twitter. Follow us there. Look in the description of this podcast for our names on our socials, or look in the bio of Find Time Podcast on Twitter to find the same. See you next time, guys. Bye.
Gobble, gobble.